I'm Elizabeth Heald, Chair of Kawasaki Disease Canada's Board of Directors. Today is Kawasaki Disease Awareness Day. It was established as a landmark day when, on January 26, 1961, Dr. Tomosaku Kawasaki of Japan had an aha moment. He saw his second patient with the telltale signs of what would later be named Kawasaki disease. I'm just going to double check that we are recording this, and let me send a message to make sure before we get started and introduce our panelists. I'm very excited today to kick off the third of 4 sessions in our new webinar series, The Heart of the Matter. Before we get started, I'd like to share a couple of housekeeping items. You can see us, but we cannot see you. You can hear us, but we can't hear you. If you have a question throughout the session, you will see at the bottom of your screen, there is a Q&A tab. You will need to hover your mouse over it. And please use this to type any questions you may have for our 3 panelists, and we will attempt to get to all of them. Today's session is being recorded, as I just verified, and it will be available later on our YouTube channel. We will follow up with a link in the next few days. We at Kawasaki Disease Canada are so very grateful for the many families all around Canada and around the globe who help to share our messages. You help to provide new pathways to early diagnosis of children through increased awareness and education. We're also very grateful for the many healthcare professionals who support us and our mission towards enhanced awareness, education, support, and of course, research to help find a cause. I'm so very pleased today to have international partners join us on this very important day. Like the pandemic, Kawasaki disease knows no boundaries. We have a common enemy, and we have a common aim, and we are stronger together. I especially appreciate that our guests are taking their dinner time to talk to us today. Christian Pescali-Soto and Rosella Massaro are 5 hours ahead of where I am here in the Eastern Standard Time Zone in Canada, as they are joining us from Rome. And Rachel McCormick and Lucy Patterson are 6 hours ahead of us, joining us from the UK. Welcome, Rosella, Rachel, and Lucy. I'd ask if you could turn on your cameras now. Ciao, Rosella. And welcome,
Hi.
Rachel and Lucy. Before we get started, I'm just going to share a brief introduction of our guests, and you will also get to learn more about them, why Kawasaki disease, so a little bit of their personal story, and the Kawasaki disease organizations that they represent in a few moments. So Rosella and her husband, Christian, who's not on camera right now, founded Malattia di Kawasaki, Rari ma Speciali, in English meaning rare but special, in 2011. The priority objectives of the association are to sensitize pediatricians to the correct and timely diagnosis of the disease, improve the quality of life of patients and their families, and make the community aware of the importance of supporting scientific research on Kawasaki disease, as well as support the pediatric and pediatric cardiology departments of Italian hospitals for the purchase of medical equipment. In a moment, I will let Rosella tell you how they make all that happen. Rachel established Societi Foundation, the UK Foundation for Kawasaki Disease, a registered charity in England and Wales in 2015, as an organization to raise awareness of Kawasaki disease. Society is also an influencing and policy shaping organization which works through partnerships to drive transformational change in awareness across the UK about Kawasaki disease. And Lucy first joined as a volunteer and now works with the organizations. So thanks again to all 3 of you for joining us today. I'd like just to remind you that the information shared today is intended to raise a greater awareness, inclusion for families impacted, and to invoke new concepts and thinking to help expand our reach for enhanced, and in some cases, new knowledge and understanding about Kawasaki disease, so that misdiagnosis is reduced. We are grateful to have learned from these partners and other partners around the globe, and we want to reach more people and help more children. So Let's get started. After a couple of years of meeting via Skype, I had the privilege of meeting Christian and Rosella during my trip to Italy in 2019. Rosella, please tell us a little bit more about the association, your passion, and some of the things you do in Italy.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Good morning, Canadian friends, and good evening to the English and Italian ones. It's a big pleasure and a big honor to be here with you on this important day. I apologize for my English. I'm not an English-speaking native, but I hope you will forgive me. We are the Italian Association for Kawasaki Disease in Italy, and we aim to support families and awareness on this important disease. My husband and I, as Elizabeth said, we founded Malattia di Kawasaki, Rarima Speciali, that means Kawasaki disease and, rare and special in Italian, 10 years ago, because our son had Kawasaki disease when he was 5 months old, and it was misdiagnosed by 3 doctors. And when it finally correctly was diagnosed, the disease, he had already developed a giant aneurysm. So we felt so alone, and so, we passed through this before a lot of people. And 10 years ago in Italy, Kawasaki disease was not so known at all. So we, founded this association to be close to the family. Our mission is to increase the awareness on Kawasaki disease, because we strongly believe that the awareness can change the course of Kawasaki in children and avoid the terrible consequences. So we strongly believe that awareness can save children's lives. And we also support families, because we know better than all the others how it's important to be close to each other. This is also the reason why we met in person, Elizabeth, we met in person, Rachel, because we feel that, as you said very well, Elizabeth, we have a common enemy, and together we are stronger.
Great, thank you so much, Rosella. And your son Gabriel is now 10, is he?
Yeah, 11, yeah, turning 11.
Oh, wow. Okay, great. Just you wait, teenage years are coming.
So. That's terrible. I'm scared.
Rachel, I recall you told us just before the holiday break that you had recently initiated a trial, KDCAAP or KDCAP, which stands for Kawasaki Disease Coronary Artery Aneurysm Prevention. So can you tell us a bit more about that, as well as a little bit about your connection to the disease?
Okay, thank you, Elizabeth, and thank you for organising this. It's a phenomenal opportunity for us to have what we often coin a Kawasaki conversation when we're talking with friends and with partners in the UK. I think it's a phenomenal idea, and no better day of the year to do it than Kawasaki Disease Awareness Day. Our family was affected by Kawasaki disease in 2009, and we suffered, as many families do, misdiagnosis, which led to serious consequences for my child. And a number of years passed, and I realised that nothing was changing in terms of awareness, and I was hearing exactly the same family experience that we had echoed from so many families, too many families. And at that point in time, there was no charity for Kawasaki disease. There was actually no place that you could go as a parent and get really reliable, trusted information and answers to questions that you might have. So in 2015, I set up Societi Foundation, and the rest is history. One of the initial things that we did was set up, in fact, it was before I constituted our charity, we set up a scientific advisory board, initially of the top 3 leading professors with expertise in Kawasaki disease in the UK. That's since grown, and we have 8 doctors that guide the work of our charity today. But it was those 3 doctors, together with a group of colleagues, that I brought together in May 2016 and said, what's the single biggest change we can make in Kawasaki disease? What's the research focus that we should be pursuing? It took a little while, because doctors have lots of different opinions on Kawasaki disease and on research, but we settled on the need for better acute treatments for Kawasaki disease, recognising that in the UK, about 20% of all children, even if they're treated with standard treatments, still go on to develop coronary artery aneurysms. So the principle of designing a clinical research trial that could investigate better acute treatments when children are first ill was agreed, and it took us about another year to think about exactly what the parameters of that would be, so where we would focus. And the introduction of corticosteroids or steroids, commonly available steroids, into the initial treatment of IVIG and aspirin, which is pretty universal treatment for Kawasaki disease. Our doctors decided that we needed a body of research. There's been quite a lot of research globally, but not very much at all in Europe, and as a result, doctors were not using steroids as an adjunctive early therapy. In fact, on a population-wide study that we did in 2013 to 2015, only 3% of children were treated with steroids, as well as aspirin and IVIG. So we got motoring with the principle. We brought families together to help us co-design the trial in a series of workshops over the summer of 2018. And we were awarded funding from a European funder called Connect the Children in April 2019. Our first centre opened, and there are going to be about 50 centres in 15 European countries. Our first centre opened, which was Great Ormond Street Hospital for children, in September, and our first patients have now been recruited into the trial. So it's very early days. We have no results or findings, and that's the frustratingly long period of time that it does actually take to get a clinical trial from concept to funding and to delivery on the ground. But we will be working over the next 3 years as the patient and public involvement lead for the trial, working with the trial team.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, and congratulations. That is just amazing work that we will all benefit from the learnings of that research. So thank you so much for that. Rosella, I have been the benefactor of the most delicious chocolates that you send out at Christmas time, but I know that your work goes well beyond fundraising by selling sweets. So please tell our audience about the work you do, including the recent work around advocating for the COVID vaccine.
Yeah. What we are doing in this specific moment, we think that the parent of Kawasaki disease children can be considered as caregivers for these children that cannot be vaccinated at the moment. So what we are doing is we advocate COVID vaccination for parents of children with Kawasaki disease history. In Italy, we have a specific protocol that provides vaccine to healthcare professionals as first, then elder population, and then teacher and people that works with a lot of people with different priority. And, you know, in the recent days, we have known that there are issues in the distribution of the vaccine. So, you know, the vials are not so many. And so the protocol is a little bit lower than, you know, is lower than expected. But anyway, together with other rare disease parents association, we belong to this, Uniamo. Uniamo is an association of many associations, and together with Italian institutions who are in charge of rare disease management, the Istituto Superiore di Sanità, we have written to the Ministry of Health advocating to include caregivers of Kawasaki disease children into this priority list, into the protocol for COVID vaccine. It's currently under investigation, so I still don't have an answer, and I don't have a time for that. And unfortunately, due to the not availability of so many vials, also the other protocol, other list, for example, the elder people, have been postponed. So the starting for the second phase have been postponed in Italy. So unfortunately, now I don't have an answer, but we are still continuing working on this in order to give our families an answer on that.
Thank you, and we certainly admire you for doing that work. It's always tough advocating for something like that, especially in the time of the pandemic. But you raise a really good point about because the children can't be vaccinated, it's important to make sure their parents and caregivers are able to be. So again, thank you for that continued work. Lucy, I hear that Society Foundation has recently launched a new website that's dedicated to answering the questions of youth, the young people of the UK, about Kawasaki disease. And this is something that we at Kawasaki Disease Canada have been had on our list of something that we would like to accomplish for some time now. So we were thrilled that you have been able to accomplish this and that we can learn from you. So in addition to just telling us a little bit about why you first started to volunteer and now are working for Society, can you tell us about your drive to make this new My Society a success?
Okay, so I'll introduce myself. I'm Lucy, and I started volunteering for Society in about 2017 following my son's Kawasaki disease diagnosis. He unfortunately has sort of lifelong heart issues now because of it, and it was my driving force for starting to raise awareness, because I just was really kind of taken aback at the lack of information, and I really wanted to do something. So my background is actually in charity comms and in media, and I was working for a different charity at the time, and about a year ago I started to work for Society. It's been a brilliant time so far. And I wanted to talk to you about My Society, which actually has been launched today. So My Society is an online resource, and it's for young people, and it's been designed by young people with the main purpose to provide facts, reliable information for young people. We know that there are roughly around 20,000 young people, children and adults living with Kawasaki disease in the UK today. And we know that there isn't that much information out there for young people to find where they can get trustworthy and reliable information. This resource is just so fantastic because it's made by young people. So there are videos, personal stories, there's videos from doctors talking about it. It answers questions that young people want to know that they might not feel that they can ask a parent or ask a doctor. It fills a massive gap. And it's something that we are just hugely proud of. I don't know if Rachel, you wanted to add anything to that, because we're both very passionate about this new resource.
We are. You covered it really well there, Lucy. I mean, it's been a passion, hasn't it, of ours, and absolutely a labour of love. And we've worked really hard with lots of partners. We've had some grant investment. We've had a lot of pro bono support to actually bring it to fruition. And we've had a phenomenal amount of support from our scientific advisory community. So that team of 8 doctors who have fact-checked and clinically backed all of the content so that young people can trust it, but their parents and carers can trust it as well. And it's going to be significant focus for our work as we go forward, because we will keep it bang up to date. It's going to need to remain fresh and continue to address all of the questions. There's lots of places where we say to young people, speak to your doctor about it, show them, take your phone into the consultation, show them this page. We want to empower young people to be able to ask the questions that, as Lucy said, they might otherwise not feel, or it might not be really relevant, or this might not be something my doctor wants to talk about. But we also encourage lots and lots of conversations at home and with trusted voices, trusted friends. So a safe online place, when we know we've got a digitally savvy teen community, haven't we? They go online for the answers to their questions. They go to Dr. Google. And we don't want them stumbling on random stuff that's frightening or worrying or downright incorrect.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Rachel. And we heard last time during our education session of this webinar series, where we had Drs. McCrindle and Dr. Dada speaking, that transition from youth to an adult cardiologist, sometimes that transition doesn't happen very, very smoothly. And so empowering young people to have the resources so that when they do sort of age out from being seen by a pediatric cardiologist, for instance, is really, really important. So thank you for that work. That's wonderful. And we're going to be following along and maybe stealing or borrowing a few ideas to launch in Canada. So thank you. I'm going to ask this question both of Rosella, and then either Rachel or Lucy can respond. But around the world, everyone feels the effect of the current pandemic. And as you know, it's turned life upside down as we knew it. So how have you had to adjust the way you run your awareness or other programs, or have you had to adjust due to the pandemic? So Rosella, over to you first.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Yes, to be honest, we have tried to continue to be loyal to our mission, that is increase the awareness on Kawasaki disease and sustain the research on this disease. But yes, of course, during the past year, we have been, we have had the COVID disease has had an impact on our job and our work in increasing this awareness. We have increased our social media presence, reducing the charity event in person, the residential event that we usually did in the past years. For example, also the chocolate boxes that you mentioned before, Elizabeth. This year we sold them only virtually, only through our website. So we have increased, the virtual part of our virtual communication with our families and our donors, and that's for sure. What also we have done is doing a lot of interviews, articles, and webinar participation in order to, share the awareness on this webinar. What we found during this COVID crazy year is that, people were much longer in front of a laptop. So probably this was the right tool to communicate with family and with all the people in the world. So we increased this kind of communication and this kind of virtual activities.
Great. Yeah, I'm always amazed, we always had this capability. We just never really used it. And now this is our life, right? Zoom calls and Skype or Microsoft Teams or whatever. But I think that the most used term in the English language anyway, maybe not in Italian, is you're on mute. If you hear that once, I think every single day for all of 2020 since the pandemic, I've heard that line. So.
Yeah, it's an Italian as well, because we say to say on mute.
Okay,
so
okay.
we do a mix. But if I may add something, it's also, helped us, for example, to do this kind of event, this kind of panelists all together, So probably before COVID, we could have done, because why not? We met each other before COVID, of course, but now it seems for us easier and the right thing to do. So let's also look at the bright side. It may possible some things, and it's possible for us to be all together in a screen and talking about Kawasaki disease from Italy, from UK, from Canada, and why not in the future from other countries as well.
Yeah, that's a great point. There are some silver linings, aren't there? Lucy or Rachel, same question. Have you had to adjust the way you run your awareness or other programs due to the pandemic?
Yes, we have, certainly, and very similar to Rosella's organisation, and I'm sure your own, Elizabeth. We've done loads more overall. We've done tons more online. We've shifted our GP packs, so our primary care doctor packs, our information packs to an online downloadable resource for them. So we've been able to proactively target thousands actually of GP practices and get those packs out. We have a hospital pack as well, which has got slightly different content, different information that goes out to paediatricians in neonatal care, in regular wards, but also in accident and emergency. We've been able to get more of those out because we shifted that online. And when our schools have been open, we have a schools pack, and again we've shifted that to be an online resource, and we've now got that posted on lots of schools' websites for parents to be able to use. We've also had a little bit of a shift in emphasis because the pandemic raised everybody's anxiety level to a greater or lesser degree. And the focus was very much on individual health and well-being. And of course, for the community that we serve and support with Kawasaki disease, a lot of people worried about pre-existing conditions, that's the phrase that was used in the UK, and susceptibility to COVID-19. And there was a lot of misinformation early in the pandemic. So we've done a lot of work with our scientific advisory board And as I mentioned earlier, through this same period, we've grown the number of doctors on our advisory board so that we can call on them more often and in more depth to give clinically backed facts, figures, information straight to our families. And we developed a statement which within a matter of about a month of having published it, it had had 80,000 views, which is absolutely phenomenal. We tracked where it had been looked at and where it had been cited, and it was international. And I think there's just been a significantly increased appetite for facts and the dispelling of myths and a lot of bluff and bluster, a lot of nonsense that has caused worry. Whether it's true or not, it's caused worry for families. So we've had that role as an organisation.
That's great. Anyone from Antarctica by chance? As always, my going joke with the team is that when we first launched our website back in 2015, after the first few months, we had hits from everywhere, every continent except Antarctica. I don't know if anyone actually lives in Antarctica, but if you know anyone, send them to our website because that's our little goal there. So.
Somebody will get that prize for us. I'll check our Google Analytics after this call as well.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Lucy, perhaps what strategies have you found most effective or successful in raising awareness amongst families? I know I've seen your picture on the Facebook page of Society doing all kinds of different activities, and I'm just wondering, what strategies have you found the most effective for raising awareness?
I think in particular, providing a webinar, responding to families and carers and parents' questions and being able to put those to the experts. I think that's what we've really found. This calling for where parents and carers want to hear from the experts themselves. So being able to provide that, I think has been huge. Also, directing people to our family portal on our website, steering them over to that, and also building a stronger sort of voice in UK Parliament. We've now got a number of committed MPs that are dedicated to raising awareness of Kawasaki disease, and that's something that we're really sort of focusing on and trying to build momentum on, because we know that when we have that voice in Parliament, we can start to make a bigger noise and a bigger change. As well as being very fortunate, in fact, to get some global advertising by Clear Channel, who've given us advertising space across the UK this week for Kawasaki Awareness Day, which is just massive, and will reach just thousands of people who will now know Kawasaki disease.
Wonderful. That's fantastic. Thanks, Lucy. Rosella, similar question, but directed for healthcare professionals. So what strategies have you found most effective in raising awareness among healthcare professionals? Because as we all know, misdiagnoses still occur. Not all healthcare professionals are aware of Kawasaki disease. So are there specific strategies or tactics that you use to raise awareness amongst them?
What we do is it's almost 5 or 6 years that we collaborate with the Italian Society of Pediatricians, and through them we can connect to the general practitioner, to the general pediatric practitioner that usually are the first point of contact for the families when children have a disease. So we send them a communication with all the, Kawasaki disease symptoms, just to remind them, hey, think about Kawasaki when you see a child with this kind of symptoms. And if you don't know, if you have a doubt, send the child to a center of excellence. So here it is, the list of the center of excellence in Italy, where they see many cases, because as we all know, it's important in case of DAB, having seen more than one case know the protocol in order to do a proper diagnosis. So that's something that we usually do, that we did in the past, and we continue doing every year. Specifically this year, what we have done among professionals, we have sponsored some virtual congress on, COVID and Kawasaki, any kind of, connection, as you know. What we also did, and we did in the past, so it's something that we usually do always, but we definitely, as Rachel said before, did a lot this year, is being a point of contact between the professionals and the families. Sometimes families comes to us with a lot of questions, a lot of doubt, a lot of, information that they need, and they don't ask to doctors. So we collect these questions and we ask to the doctors, because of course, ethically, we have this responsibility. We have to give, the right answer to the questions we cannot answer by ourselves, because we are not doctors. So we are this point of connection between these two words. And we gave the family, we have a list of common questions with the answer done by our scientific directors. And when the questions are, outside from this list, we ask, and we gave, the family the answer that they need.
Right, thank you. I know you invited me to one of the pediatric conferences that you had, where our very own Dr. Brian McCrindle from the Toronto Hospital for Sick Children was speaking, and it was great because I could understand what he was saying. I couldn't understand what the rest was in Italian, but I did. I picked up a few new words that day. So, but no, it's a great way to do it for sure. Before I go to the next prepared question that we do have a question from the audience, which is, my son was diagnosed with KD nearly 4 days after his scheduled vaccinations. And at that time, he was 2.5 years old. And this anonymous attendee's question is, could his shots have caused his Kawasaki disease? That question actually did come up last time on our session with the two pediatric cardiologists. And in fact, that has been dismissed, that it's not, there is no connection. I also just shared with that anonymous attendee the link that Rachel shared with me, that Society posted around that question. Anything else you would add to that, Rachel, in your statement that I shared to respond to that?
I think it is important to understand that it's one of those myths that we spend a lot of time busting around Kawasaki disease. There are people who maintain the view that there is a link. The study and work that's been done really debunks that myth pretty absolutely. And in the hundreds of thousands of children that have vaccines and the hundreds of thousands of vaccine jabs that they have, if there was an association or a link, I think we would see very significantly more cases of Kawasaki disease than we do. We see far too many, so I'm not advocating for more, but it is really important to stress that it's very young children that get vaccines, and you know what, it's very young children that are the most vulnerable group for getting Kawasaki disease. So there is an association, but not a causation, and it's really important to understand the distinction between the two.
Great, thank you. And we'll share that link with the viewers when we send out our follow-up as well. So thank you for sharing that. So, as the audience can see, there's always lots of tools and tricks we use for raising awareness, whether it be these beautiful red sweatshirts with Society and the heart on it, whether it be Zoom backdrops or Zoom wallpaper and posters like Rosella has. And again, I don't know if you'll be able to see these with my background, but there's this one. Well, it goes in and out, but there's a piece that I got from Rosella, and then there's these beautiful cards that come out from Society, and we have calendars. And what you don't have yet, and I'm sorry to break the secret, but I don't think you got it yet. I call the Canada Post mail snail mail. you are going to be getting face masks because we ordered Kawasaki Disease Awareness face masks. So that is in the mail to you. You might get it by next Katie Awareness Day, but it is coming to you. So I guess all of that to say, if you could pinpoint one thing in particular when it comes to raising awareness, like is it the things, is it the fridge magnets and the posters and those types of trinkets, or is it something else? So what do you think is the one thing that's maybe the most effective, and also what would you say is the most challenging about trying to raise awareness? And so I'll just open that up. Whoever wants to jump in.
If I may say, yeah, sorry, no, I say what it's, you know, for us, what it has been most rewarded is involving school, because as you said, you know, we have this. This is the box of our chocolate that we did for Christmas.
Show you those
yeah, it's with this paper. I cannot show the picture, but every year the drawing on top of the box changes because it's the winner of a contest that we do inside the primary schools in Italy. And it's the 4th year that we do that. And every year, you know, we are increasing the number of schools that wants to attend. The purpose is that teachers explain to children, you know, what means having an impactful disease like Kawasaki, and ask children to draw, you know, something related to Christmas, related to, you know, diversity, inclusion, and so on. Then, you know, we decide, you know, there is a judge, there are judges, it's me, my husband, and some volunteers, of course. And, you know, we choose one, we pick, it's always very difficult, but because all the drawings are very beautiful, but it is effective because then we are contacted by families, by teachers, you know, that ask about Kawasaki disease, and you know, and so we go into school and we talk about the symptoms, you know, and it's a moment when we definitely see people engaging. They want to know, you know, and they really realize that even if it's not happening to you, but it might happen to everybody in your, you know, families or among your friends, and you can raise your hands and save a life. So it's important to know, even if it hasn't happened to you. And we think that it worked very well. If you want to pay.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, if you want a tough point.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. What's the toughest?
There are two. One is to have sponsors, let's say not families, but big sponsors on which we can rely when we have to launch a project. Because let's be honest, when we have to launch a project, we need money. So we need to have sponsors to rely on. And the second one is grant. You know, this is the two tough points that we are facing on in Italy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we feel your pain here in Canada as well, for sure. So. Thank you, Rosella. Those were great points for sure. Lucy, Rachel.
So I think the importance of having a consistent and strong and powerful message with a brand that is trustworthy and people can recognize is so important. I think obviously we all have that, and particularly for Society, our Society kids play a huge role in that. As well as we've recently just launched as well an awareness campaign video, and I think that has worked incredibly well, and I think it would be fantastic to be able to do more of that. So a very sort of hard-hitting awareness campaign video has been really powerful.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. So I think, Rachel, that leaves you with what's the toughest thing then?
I did that tactically.
Yeah.
The hardest thing, I think, is the scale of the task, because Kawasaki disease is little known. For those people that know it, they often wrongly think it's rare. You know, I've spoken to medical students who've been taught about this really interesting disease, but you know what, you're never going to see it because it's so rare. So we've got all these barriers that are inbuilt. You know, we know Kawasaki disease is increasingly common. In the UK, it's more common than measles. It's more common than bacterial meningitis. Doctors would know and recognise both the seriousness and the urgency with which to treat these diseases, and they don't see that for Kawasaki disease. And that's partly because of there being lots of really out-of-date information out there. So we've got a really big job on our hands, without a shadow of a doubt. And I think that our biggest tool in that is our website. So if I think of the things that we do and we share with our website, we've got depth and we've got reach. We've got a global reach with our website, and we've got a clinician area, we've got public facing and effective family facing areas. If we want volume, which we do, we go to social media. So we're really active on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter. If we want a parent conversation, that's on Facebook, because that's a sort of dedicated community for us. If we want a public, big hitting, that's where we've been blessed, as Lucy said, to have a global advertising firm give us free advertising space worth tens of thousands of pounds. You know, the big screens that you see, the digital screens that you see on the sides of motorways or in big city squares. In the UK at the moment, they've got Kawasaki disease on. That's, I mean, amazing. How incredible is that? But all roads lead back to the website. So all of those channels go back to a really solid website. And Lucy's points are really important. It's a trusted brand. It's clear. It's easy to navigate around. And I think we've just got to keep ramping up and do more and more. We have a phrase which is we're trying to reach just 65 million people. Because we believe everybody in the UK needs to know Kawasaki disease. So it's a multi-channel approach that we need to take, but pivoting around a really solid website.
Great. Yeah, thank you all for those. So as we know, the news media in Canada and abroad has been headlining the emergence of MIS-C, the multi-system inflammatory syndrome in children. And has this had an effect on the way you approach awareness of Kawasaki disease in Italy and in the UK? And I guess also would be, have you noticed a general a change in any way in general awareness outside of the families that already knew about Kawasaki disease? Have you seen an increase? We were fortunate enough to get 6 seconds on the national news on Mother's Day, actually, our Mother's Day, which is different than your Mother's Day. But it was like a half-an-hour interview boiled down to 6 seconds. But that was 6 more seconds than we had previously had on national news. And there was a physician that went on to tell more about it. And it was because of this connection that people were suspecting, is it Kawasaki disease? Isn't it Kawasaki disease? And at the time, that's when we all connected again to say, let's put out an international statement around this new phenomenon. And so we published that, and we're able to calm some fears of some KD parents as well, because I'm sure you've brokered a lot of conversations with families around, should I be worried about my child? Is he or she more susceptible to Kawasaki disease, etc.? So the question really is, have you noticed a change in the general awareness of Kawasaki disease because of this potential connection with MIS-C? Rosella?
Yes, we have seen that, this change, as you said, because, thanks to this connection between this illness, COVID and Kawasaki, we increased the number of contacts that we received on our website, and we received questions also from families with no Kawasaki disease history in their life. So, everybody, I think, I'm not saying everybody, it would be my, aim and big aspiration that everybody knew about what Kawasaki disease is. But let's say that much more people now know in Italy what is Kawasaki disease, or at least had heard about that. And this is definitely something, good in terms of awareness. And that it happened because, as you said, Elizabeth, also in Italy, we had an interview with Sky TG, with a very big television channel. Everybody wanted to know about Kawasaki, and so the number of research on our website increased dramatically in those days. So let's say that this is something that changed in terms of awareness. What we have done from our point, being loyal to our mission and our collaboration with institution, we have participated as Association of Families to the technical committee. In Italy, there is the Comitato Tecnico Scientifico, a technical committee who, decided the action to put in place for COVID. So we attended to one session explaining, that the families were worried about Kawasaki disease, that they sent us picture of their children asking you, do you think it might be Kawasaki, and so on. So there was a moment, let's say, very emotional. And we tried to manage this, putting the attention, advocating this with the institution. And we worked together with the institution, and we produced an official document, giving answers to the family, is my son much more at risk because he had much more at risk with COVID because he had Kawasaki disease, or because of COVID, is my child much more at risk with Kawasaki disease, and so on. Very common questions that people have. So let's say, yes, it changed. And I hope that it helped us a little bit in, increasing the knowledge on this disease.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you, Rosella. And I must say, you're Italian. Well, your Italian is impeccable, but your English is also fabulous. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
And tell Christian next time we want him to come too, because he thinks his English is not good, but we know it is. Same question over to Rachel and Lucy around Missy and Kawasaki disease.
So in the UK, they've given it the name PIMS-TS.
Yes.
But it is a similar or the same syndrome. And we've had conversations with our board about the, the very negative impact of this very clumsy and premature sort of coupling of COVID-19 and Kawasaki disease that happened very early on in the pandemic. And that caused us great frustration because, exactly like Rosella, we had an 800% increase on traffic to our website. We had a 20-fold increase in contacts to our organisation at a time when the world was changing really fast. We were all working from home, nobody in the office here. It was a phenomenal workload to try and respond to. But our board of trustees was quite pragmatic in saying, well, if there is an upside, and there's some real challenges at the moment, it's very difficult to see them. If there is an upside, we've got a bit of an open door in terms of that level of understanding, just because we were hearing the phrase Kawasaki disease out of the mouths of world leaders and in media and in lots of places. So we decided we needed to seize the moment and really ramp up our awareness, which we've done, and ramp up our output generally, which we've done. With a view to trying to capitalise on it, so that if you've heard of Kawasaki disease, you've got a bit of a platform, haven't you? You've got an opportunity to build some more knowledge and information. If nobody's ever heard of Kawasaki disease, that's quite a big barrier to begin with, isn't it? Because you end up with those what conversations. Whereas if there's something there, there's something to build on. So we've invested in building our little team a little bit stronger, doing more, and investing some of the resources from our fundraising into stepping up our awareness.
Great, thank you. Last chance for our audience. If you have any questions, just a reminder to put it in the Q&A. So I'm just going to turn it over for one last word from each of our panelists before we close. So perhaps I'll go to Lucy next. Considering you have the communications background, I know you can think quickly on your feet. So one last message for our audience today on Kawasaki Disease Awareness Day. What would you like everyone to know, either about society or about the disease, that we can take forward?
I think I would just like to share the message that Kawasaki disease is serious. It's always a medical emergency, and I just want everyone to do one thing today, which would be just to tell one person about Kawasaki disease, because if it's just one person, then you've made a difference to maybe one child's heart. And from a professional and a personal perspective, that is really just massive and what I really care about.
Great.
So Jess, just tell one person today about Kawasaki disease.
Thanks, Lucy. Rachel.
Lucy has stolen the point I was going to make, but ever so slightly differently. But essentially that, you know, we have people who do skydives and amazing things. We have people who raise thousands, and Lucy herself has swum 5 miles in cold water lake, you know, end to end in the Lake District. Amazing physical feats and achievements. But Kawasaki disease awareness is as much or as little as you want to do. We really do need, as a collective of organisations across the globe, we need people to give just a little bit of time, which might be, just as Lucy has said so brilliantly, might just be one conversation or one sharing of a social media post, or just one thing can make the world of difference. In fact, for a child affected by Kawasaki disease, it can make a lifetime of difference. So please do get involved. That one thing that you might be able to do will be incredibly valuable.
Great, thank you. Well said, Rachel. And Rosella, I will end with you.
Yeah, we'll say after you, Lucy and Rachel, you know. No, but I'm totally aligned, because I strongly, but my husband and I, we strongly believe that awareness is everything. Knowledge this disease can change the future. And as you said, this is the power of the awareness. If you only, you know, today speak with one person about Kawasaki disease, you might change one child's future. It's incredible, but it is what it is. If you think about Kawasaki disease, when a child has these symptoms, you know, you might be wrong, you might be right, but you might change his life forever. So please, you know, inform other people, and talk about Kawasaki disease, because it's really a tricky disease. But if you know it, you can change the future for the best.
Great. Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much. Wise words from 3 very wise women. And thank you so much. A huge thank you to all of you for joining us on what I know is an incredibly busy day. We're still midday for us, and you're going into the evening hours now, but we're thankful for our collaboration, which has helped us to shape the work of Kawasaki Disease Canada. And what we learn from you extends beyond to our Canadian Kawasaki disease family. So thank you so much. Our collective quest is really simple: to increase the number of early diagnoses by broadening awareness and education of Kawasaki disease symptoms and treatments, thereby decreasing the incidence of long-term complications. Or, as in our case, we didn't know about Kawasaki disease until the day after our son passed away. So your passion, your dedication, and the work you do is invaluable in helping families and patients prevail over this potentially life-threatening disease. So together, we build KD communities around the world, and they in turn provide a huge service by sharing their voice, like you've asked them to do today, to inform the world about Kawasaki disease. So thanks again so much for joining us. And before we close, I also want to thank our audience today. As mentioned, this is the 3rd session in our webinar series, The Heart of the Matter. Please join us and share details with your friends and family about our next session. So far we've heard from parents who have shared their journeys with children that have had Kawasaki disease. We've heard from our medical professionals, and today from our global partners. On Valentine's Day, the Day of the Heart, we will hear from our research professionals to understand the progress that they are making in a variety of ways. Stay tuned for details on our social media platform and on our website. So thanks again, everyone, and hope you have a wonderful day and stay safe. Bye-bye.